Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Well, today is actually the first real day of spring that we've had. We've had a few little short breaks here and there, but constant rain, which is actually pretty typical for the Pacific Northwest this time of year. And anyway, got a couple of things we're going to do today. Going to take down the second tree we had out in the yard that needed to come down. So we had one big branch at the very top we're going to take out with a mini Mac. And we're going to cut down the tree with the John Deere 40V. And then when we get ready to cut up the log, we've got something special. So we'll be back when we're ready. Okay, well, we got the top branch, the last branch out of the tree, so we're getting ready to drop it, and we'll be using our John Deere 40V. So anyway, we'll get over the tree and get our safety gear on. Be right back. Perfect. Well, we've got a piece of tree here, and I like to use my old equipment, kind of go through it. Ones that I use the most, we did a video on recently, and then this is the ones I don't use hardly ever, but as you can see, it's really in nice condition. It's a 1963 or 64 Homelite C-7. And this is your old school type saw, big and heavy, weighs 18.5 pounds without a bar. This one has a 17-inch bar and a 404 chain on it. It's 80.5 cc, and unload speed is like 6,500, and cutting speed is about 6,000, which is typical of the old Homelites from the 60s. So anyway, I'm going to do some cuts with it here, and so we'll be back when we get it warmed up. Well, you can see it cuts really good. It's kind of slow. And look at that nice sawdust. Well, you can see that does a pretty good job even for an old antique there. And when it's in really good shape like that one, can run forever given good care. Sure beats it handsaw. Anyway, okay, well, time for vintage chainsaw BS. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the C-7 here. You say these are kind of a transition saw. It's got the lay down cylinder. And the model they were producing right before it has the old style upright cylinder. So these were produced in the same era. This one is 1 year older than this one here. This is what they call a so-called homeowner saw, cheapo version. Get a steel tank and fuel and oil caps. If you turn it upside down, oil and gas leaks out. But it does have a Tillotson pumper carb on it, so it can run on its side, and actually can run upside down for a short length of time. But anyway, let's talk a little bit more about these. These were produced in 1963 and 4. And a smaller one is a C5. And the interesting thing between the other saw I showed you, the 500 there, is they use the same internal parts, but the layout of the saw is completely different. And like I say, a transition saw from lay down cylinders, then eventually smaller and lighter, and then come out with the XL12 there, which revolutionized the chainsaw industry. So this one weighs 18.5 pounds with the power head, so let's see how much it weighs with the chain and bar on it. It's right at 26 pounds. So, like I say, you can still do a lot of work with these old saws, but you better not be a weenie. Picking that thing up all day long is going to wear you right out. So anyway, it's 80.5 cc's. In the cutting it runs about 6 to 6,500 RPM. Said you can run a 30-inch bar on these, but I don't think so. This has got a 17 on it. And it says you can run up to a 30, but this on the top says convertible. You could buy a kit from Homelite to make it into a gear drive saw so that you could use the marginal horsepower, gear it down and run a long chain with and bar on it. You usually run like a 7/16 chain or something like that on it. So anyway, we'll talk about the 500 here. This power head was used not just in saws. They had them on water pumps, tampers, just about any kind of power equipment. Generators was another. I have an old generator, has the same basic power head on it. And like I say, this one is made in 1960 to 62. Has a Tillotson pumper carb, manual oiling only, just like the other one's manual oiling only. And this is supposed to weigh 19.5 pounds, just the power head. So let's see what it actually weighs. Oh, it's a whole pound lighter, 25 pounds. So just think, if you're a woodcutter and you're tired of running that big old heavy C7 saw there, you can get this lightweight homeowner saw. One's 1 pound less. Wow. Anyway, this is 77.6 cc. This power head parts were used for many years. So anyway, the early ones, 60 to 62 were the production years, and mid 61 on they went to the red like this one. So anyway, there you have the transition from homeowner to pro. And my other motto is use what you have. Oh, I forgot the one thing. I found a reproduction spike for the C7 here. It doesn't have a dog spike on it, so I'll put that on at some point. But I'm always talking about use what you have. Well, I just scooped up most of my sawdust here, and they make fire starters out of it. And you can go back and look through my older videos, which is a good idea. You can see how we make them. So anyway, more coming up, more cutting coming up. I'm going to talk just a little bit about these big old heavy saws. Yeah, modern lightweight saws, you have to push them into the wood. These old hogs weigh so much that just the weight will go through it, so I'll go ahead and start it, and then I'll just keep my hand close to the top handle but not on it, and you can see how fast it cuts with just the weight of the saw. You can see it doesn't make a whole lot of difference if I'm pushing on it lightly or not. Well, I wanted to talk briefly about these old big giant hogs that Homelite made. Like I say, this is made in '63 and '4, but it's the end of an era. 1964 was a big change in the industry, and I'll show you why in a minute. But the C-series saws like this were, a few larger ones were produced for a few more years. The homeowner saw like this one, the 500 here. It's also the end of an era for Homelite too, because they quit making the old style power head. It's got a 7/16 chain, which lost favor, 3/8 and 404. This has a 404 on it. Anyway, I'll tell you why '64 was such a big change for the chainsaw industry. Okay, well, here's the thing that changed the chainsaw industry and Homelite's fortunes forever. In 1964, they came out with the XL12 and the Super XL, which this is here. So the XL12 is 54 cc, and the Super XL like this is 58 cc. So both of these saws were made in 1964. So what this did was light, easy to use, and Homelite moved into the consumer market, the farm and homeowner saw market, a lot faster than the others, and of course their sales just blossomed like crazy, and they became one of the largest selling manufacturers of chainsaws in the world. So anyway, the XL12 stood for 12 pounds. The power head weighs 12 pounds, 12 ounces. The 20-inch bar on it here weighs 17 pounds. But these were made from '64 to 1988. And there wasn't too much change on them. They were such a good basic design. So I think it was '67 when they came out with automatic and manual oiling both. Early saws are manual oiling on the bar. For '64 only, they had just this straight exhaust stack. In '65 they came out with a spark arrestor muffler, and they upped the horsepower on them. Now the early ones like this, under a load, run about 6,000 RPM. The later ones run quite a bit faster. So anyway, that changed the whole chainsaw industry. Everybody, almost every other manufacturer copied this thing almost identically. And it's really a sad tale here. I'll be right back. Okay, well, like I say, this put Homelite to the big seller and big manufacturer they were. And over the years, they changed hands and started going just cheapo consumer market saws, and they get worse and worse and worse. And here's the worst. So anyway, they went from one of the largest selling chainsaws in the world to this piece of crapola, which is one of the smallest selling saws. And if you call it a chainsaw, that's kind of a bit of a stretch. I mean, I'm going to do a test here pretty soon. I think I'll take a pair of vice grips and pinch the bar here in the chain. Then I'll use it as a handsaw and see if it cuts any faster than it does with the power head running. Got some more coming up. Well, now that we got all our vintage BS done, let's go back and do some more cutting. That's really kind of fun to run these old saws, big old hogs like this. So anyway, I'll get it warmed up and be right back. I think we need some fuel. Well, we'll be back with some more wood. I'll show you the chips here this thing produces. .404 leaves some pretty good sized chips. But yeah, that cuts really good, and the chain is about 50% of its life left on it, so for full tilt it would be a little better than this, but can't really ask for much better than that. So anyway, be enough cutting for today. So I wanted to talk about what's coming up soon. And weather's finally starting to improve. I wanted to talk a little bit about hobbies. You know, our whole operation here is a hobby, but you know, we're using our antiques here for work, but there's some stuff we have for play too. So anyway, like everything else we have, it'll be vintage and old school. So keep watching. Vintage is best. We'll see you on the next exciting video.